Hi, in this video, I'm going to discuss what should be in the body of your research paper. So as we discussed in the last video, here is the title page for your project, your research project. I'm going to scroll down, and this in general is what your paper, the body of your paper should look like. Okay, you can see that it's double spaced. There are regular indentations. And if you read through what I wrote here, I give some tips on what you should be writing in the paper. So all kinds of questions that you can consider when you're writing your paper. But first of all, you can look here. The first paragraph should be an introduction to your paper. So every research paper that you write should have some kind of introduction because this is a student-based format. You don't have to write an abstract for your paper. An abstract is a little bit longer introduction set apart on a separate page, but for our purposes, you only have to write a small introduction in the beginning of your paper. So you're basically introducing us to what you're going to talk about in detail in the paper, okay? The paper should be 1 to 2 pages, double spaced. We've already double spaced, so I shouldn't have to redo that. I'm just going to scroll down and start my paper here. In order to indent evenly throughout the paper, you can use the tab button and you just click it once and it'll indent and it'll stay uniform through the whole paper. Okay, so if you look through my paragraphs here, they're just questions, prompts to give you ideas on how you can put the paper and the information that you research into your own words. Okay, so all kinds of things that you can consider to discuss. Again, it's going to be 1 to 2 pages. As if we scroll down, you see here at the bottom of the first page, I add in that you should write a short conclusion to your paper. So you're going to wrap up what you were discussing and maybe highlight the most important points. Okay, especially why do we still talk about this person and what was their place in history? Okay. Now, if you go to the second page, again, this is what the paper should look like, but my text is something different. It's suggestions. Okay. So more tips, again, use the tab button to indent. Please put things in your own words. Don't copy and paste. Teachers do know what your writing style is like, especially if you've already written some things for them. They can tell when the writing style changes. So even if you think you're fooling people, you're probably not. So, but if you really, really want to use something word for word, you can use it as a quotation. For this length of a paper, I would suggest only a 1-line quotation instead of multiple quotations that take up block text like this. That's because most of the paper should be your analysis, okay, in your own words. If it's a longer paper, you may be quoting more often, but for this length of a paper, I would say 1 quote. And that would be, the quotation is really to back up an assertion or something that you really can't put in your own words, that it's something unique that that person said or did. Okay. So don't copy and paste word for word. And if you do have a quote that's more than 1 line, this is how you would set it apart. So you'd indent twice. You'd use the tab button twice. Okay. And then you'll notice that I have my last name and then the year in parentheses. So what I'm doing is showing you an example of what an in-text citation is. So if you put a quote in your paper, you do have to cite which article you got it from. And what I did is give you an example. So say I wrote an article that you wanted to quote, you'd put my last name, comma, and then the year of the article. Okay, so whatever author or article you're quoting, if there's no author, you use the beginning of the title and the year of publication. If there's an author, you use their last name, comma, and then the year of publication. So it's called an in-text citation. So anytime you're paraphrasing, also you need to do an in-text citation. Okay, and I discussed that in the next paragraph. You can see I've done it a few more times just so you get to see what it looks like. It's not very difficult. You should only have 3 or 4 articles to look at for this length of a paper. So it's a good idea to get used to telling. This is basically to tell the professor or your teacher where you got your information, where you're paraphrasing from. So you didn't just make it up out of thin air. You actually read this in this article by this author, and the article was published on this date. So that's the purpose of the in-text citation. Once you've done it a few times, it becomes pretty easy. And this is what it looks like. Okay, and then finally, your last page will be a separate page called references, and you should have been collecting your references all along. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to format those references. Okay,